It was, you know, always in the summer. It wasn't a regular circuit. Half mile is standard around here, yeah. The track in Clinton, it's a beautiful track. The one picture we have here, it was on the Mitchell racetrack, but it was to promote the Stratford races. I was kind of raised on a racetrack. My dad was very enthusiastic. My grandfather really started racing in Perth County. My grandfather had a car dealership in Mitchell. Him and a guy from Listowel decided they were going to sell cars. So the pair of them went to General Motors in Oshawa and they got dealerships. I think there was 7 or 8 cars each they had to take, and Grandpa had no trouble selling them. He liked to sell cars and he was really good at it. It was prior to 1939, because that's when the war started. I can remember seeing pictures of some of the cars from the 20s, and this one up on the wall here with my grandfather, and that's my dad sitting on the fender. But Grandpa was very interested in horses, and he got his son Gordon, my dad, to get into the horse racing business, and he did very well. He had a lot of winning horses, and he tried to drag me into it, but my wife thought maybe not. We had bought a pacer at a racetrack in Detroit. Father said it was to prompt the colts. And I always was the number 2 guy driving. The idea was to get them used to going around the racetrack with another horse. He raced it up at Mitchell on the racetrack, and he said he was very impressed with Joshua. Every time he would turn him the right way of the racetrack, the horse would jump. He'd make a break, in other words. And Father said he was to prompt the colts, and he didn't want them prompted that way. So he gave the horse to me. Father and I were racing on the racetrack. He had a colt trying to train, and I had Joshua. As soon as we hit the starting line, the damned horse would jump. He said, "The hell with them, let her run," and I did. And shortly after that, I got a saddle for him. And we could do the Mitchell racetrack in a little over a minute. He could just fly on the run, but he could not pace. Oh, I didn't have a car license, 14 maybe, 13. He was quite a horse, I'll tell you. We'd go swimming in the cow hole. And I'd swim behind the horse and hang on to his tail. And could he ever swim? And he could jump too, except one time up there in Mitchell, I used to take him a ride down along the river, and there was a little stream that ran into the river, and he would jump over that all the time. Never missed. He'd come along, and it was just little, you know. Anyways, one day we were out, and that was going along fairly fast down through the pasture field. And he come to this little creek, and he dug his feet in like that. He wasn't going to jump, but I did. I thought I broke my neck. So I just took off right over him and landed. Of course, knocked the wind out of me. He just stood there and looked at me. "What are you doing?" Father had those horses over in St. Mary's because he had the car dealership. And I remember going up to the barn. I was very young. I forget how big it was. Well, the other track going around the outside was half a mile. I think it was just small, but I can remember he had an old truck, and we dragged inside to smooth it all, make sure it was all smooth. He liked it because of the closed-in quarter-mile track. In the wintertime, you could still get out and get the horse exercised. That was one of the main reasons. They used it during the fair, too. So it'd be 49, 50 maybe. Because you couldn't get cars because of the war, but Father had been trained a bit as a machinist. So he got a job with everybody at the CNR. There's a little story about the CNR. There was a guy there looking, well, an inspector, I think, with, of course, one of the foremen, and they were walking around looking at all what was going on. And he says, "How many men work here?" One of the guys piped up, "About half of them." Anyways, he was in the brass outfit because he was assigned a machine that didn't work, but he got it fixed and got it working. And this is quite a device. The toes on all the horses have to be a certain angle. The idea is to keep them pacing or trotting. And he's got it all marked in degrees. He has his favorite degree on here. And it was made in 1944. I think he built it for himself because he was very particular on the horses, the angles of the shoes and all that. And he said, "I was never so glad to get out of there and get back to selling cars." You had to register your colors so that they could tell who was racing what. If you're going to have a blue suit, it's got to be registered if nobody else had one. Mom made that outfit, and she had it all the time with a hat to get the colors and all this crap on the hat. I remember Mom cursing about that. You had to have a license, driver's license, just the same as a car. And I was something to do with going to the States that the first couple of races at Saratoga, Father had to get a driver because he didn't have an American license. Yeah, beautiful track in Saratoga. My grandfather, I never saw him behind a horse. Never did. He owned everything. Yeah, Dad just drove for him. I remember some of the purses that were quite good, like that Super Test in London. I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I sat in the stands with him at that race. And Father was out on the track, of course. This is Eddie Mack Jr., and it's for 2-year-olds. And this was presented at London to my grandfather. Super Test gas and oil, it no longer exists, but it's in pretty good shape considering I think there was quite a little bit of money involved too. The story is 3 guys were in the gas station and this car drove up, and it was a police car and the policeman was driving, but they didn't notice that the guy next to him had a gun on it. They were going to steal another car from Fawm Motors because this car was hot. And just then Dad and some other young guys pulled up out front. The guys took him in the back shop, and Father made a move to grab the gun, and he shot him, and he had those big crate soles on his shoes, shot his heel right off the shoe. They did get another car, and Father was driving. They got him in the car to drive, and one of the guys jumped on the back of the car on the spare tire. They took off, but before they got there, the guy with the gun stuck it out the window and shot him, and the guy in the back fell off. He was shot, not dead. Nobody was killed here. Father started talking. He was a good talker because he was a car salesman. He got talking to the guy, and the cigarette case, he pulled it out, and the guy was going to steal the cigarette case, this one here. Yeah. And it was 1931. He said, "Okay, I'm going to shoot you, Gordon." And this is Dad's own story. He was a good storyteller. And he said, "That's my last cigarette." He said, "Just give me the case." He said, They give him a big story about this wonderful cigarette case, which kind of slowed him down a bit. And Father got out of the car, and they drove away. They did catch them in Stratford, I believe, and nobody was hurt. And Grandpa put an article in the paper. He says, "It's the best." I think there was $12 worth of gas missing or something. Oh. He said it was the best advertising we ever had for $12.
When my grandfather got the award in 1978, I was 10 years old, and I remember him getting the award up in the stands with my father and my mother and my siblings. And I do remember them saying the name incorrectly, and my father piping up.
And then the announcer got to Fawm, and he couldn't put 4 letters together. And I yelled out, "For Christ's sakes, it's Fawm!" And one of the girls from Mitchell that I hadn't seen in 100 years tapped me on the back and said, "I knew it was you, Ted."
I had contacted the track and just said to him, "I'm going to have my 85-year-old father at the track, and my grandfather got his award there. Could we maybe do a little shout out, to my dad?" And then the guy said, "I can do you one better. We're going to have a memorial race day, and we can name a race after your grandfather, and you guys can present the winning harness." And I kind of thought that was fantastic. It was more than I expected. It was a great day. We got to present the winning horse of the second race that they named after in memory of my grandfather. And we got to give them a really nice leather halter with a brass plate on it saying what he'd won, what race he'd won and things. And it was just a nice memory to have.
My dad was such a sportsman. He had to be at that race, Not me, but he had to be. Somebody caught him sleeping in the stall with a horse one time. He said, "So that's how you win races." Yeah, he's a great guy.